A member of the People's Democratic Party, Ama Abraham, has insisted that the ongoing leadership crisis within the party will be resolved by the courts following guidance from the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. Speaking on the morning show, Abraham said a meeting between PDP factions and INEC made it clear that the electoral body had not recognized the controversial party convention held in Ibadan. However, the internal crisis within the party has taken a new turn as INEC announced it will not recognize the Kabiru Turaki-led National Working Committee due to ongoing court cases. Joining us on the show to discuss INEC's intervention into the PDP crisis and the latest announcement by the electoral body on not recognizing the Kabiru-led NWC is Sani, a chieftain of the PDP, alongside Ememobong, PDP National Publicity Secretary. Good morning and welcome to the morning show.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And good morning, Dr. Abati. And good morning, Rufai.
Good morning, sir.
The fireman.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, gentlemen, let's deal with the what looks like a contradiction that Ama Abraham was referring to yesterday. The INEC sent its observers to the Ibadan Convention. Why is INEC now saying, oh, that convention is not valid? The second part, I can relate to the point about, okay, let the court cases be resolved so that it doesn't look like INEC is either anticipating or prejudging what the outcome in the courts will be. That will make sense. But why attend, a convention and then say, oh, it's not valid? And then number three is the meeting called by INEC, to which Samuel Anyanwu of another faction was invited, and other persons belonging to other factions were not invited to that meeting. A set of contradictions. Let's start with you, Sani, the cat, before we come to Ine, because you are now like a high chief of the party, not just a chieftain, a high chief. Some people say they are double chief. Some people are high chiefs. So high chief, okay. Sani, you start.
Dr. Abati, I'm glad that yesterday you were in Ibadan. And while you were in Ibadan, you moderated the media chat between the governor of Oyo State and some media chieftains. And you are also a media high chief because you were on that panel. Now, in that discussion, you must have realized that the governor of Oyo State, Seyi Makinde, has let the cat out of the bag. He has told Nigerians what has happened. He has told Nigerians why Wike is behaving the way he is behaving. And it is no surprise, therefore, that if he is behaving the way he is behaving, and his boss, who went to the National Assembly to say that it gives him great pleasure to see us in disarray, and that he was not going to help us. We didn't ask for his help. And we didn't say we cannot navigate our issues, because we know that constitutionally we are following due process and all that has been laid down in the party constitution and the guideline, and of course the Electoral Act. Now, INEC is now playing a double game, unfortunately, because the same INEC that has been observing or monitoring, if you like to use the word that they like to use, all our congresses and conventions are now saying they cannot recognize us because of this subsisting court order. And they went, what is even more disappointing is the fact that they went further to say that our purported National Elective Convention, which is that they are trying to undermine it, trying to give, some substance that in our party we have a faction. And we do not have a faction. People have a right to go to court to express their grievance, but we don't have any any faction within our party. And as far as we are concerned, those judgments that were taken to court, we had already there is a stay of execution on those aspects. They are declaratory judgments, but there are those aspects that are injunctive, which is directing all INEC to do certain things. We have taken a stay on them. And taking that stay, INEC is refusing to recognize that we have taken a stay, but they are saying we only appealed. Similarly, INEC was trying to downplay the suit before the Ibadan High Court. Because they were delisted in the case, does not still remove the fact that that case is still ongoing. The judge had already adjourned it to 26th of January. Now, that case, was initially an interim order. But subsequently, the man went for that to make it an interlocutory order, which means that it cannot expire until after the determination of the substantive matter before it. And if INEC is delisted, the fact of the matter is, our argument is, we are not the ones who instituted the action. It is a person who was trying to contest election within our party that instituted the action. And he is saying he is entitled he cannot allow the convention not to hold. And so that the convention must hold. And if the convention does not hold, he will suffer some injury. And so he filed for it. And that thing we only got an order telling us to go ahead with our convention. So we are not saying all these things are not irregular. INEC's position is what is irregular, because the Supreme Court has variously held that leadership matters within political parties are not justiciable. This has been demonstrated in two very important cases. The case of Labour Party, which recently took place, and the case between INEC and SDP, where the court said that INEC has no power to recognize or not to recognize anybody.
Omar Sani. Okay, let's hear from Ine Ememobong. Ine, over to you.
Yes, Dr. Bati, good morning.
Yeah, just go ahead. We just want you to respond to the same issue.
The issues are simple. The fact that INEC as a regulator should be neutral. And INEC has gone on to say that we are waiting for the judgment of the Court of Appeal. That's fine. But to go further, to state facts within their knowledge, selectively state facts within their knowledge, is what we are contending with. And to attempt to create a picture, a narrative, a perspective that there are factions is another thing we have issues with the postulation of INEC. Why is it so? Now, what is a faction? A faction must be of equal and balancing weight. As of today, there is no body claiming to be the leadership emerging from a convention as the way it should be. When you backtrack to where the issue started from, you see that the NWC of Damagum, 14 people sat and suspended 3 people. 3 people purportedly sat thereafter to suspend the rest. I mean, so immediately you backtrack to that point, you see that there is no way where there is a faction. We are not contending that there is no case before the Court of Appeal. We are not asking that INEC should break the law or should not respect the law, but we are simply saying that INEC should not, cannot, and must not posture that there is a faction in the PDP, and which is why we have very serious exemptions to the meeting they called on Friday. The late senior advocate, who is the chairman of INEC, knows enough that Friday's meeting was absolutely unnecessary because, as he knew as at that point, the issues were before the Court of Appeal. But to now invite us on the basis of several letters we had written to him, complaining about the attitude of their officers, including suppressing documents and evidence before the court. When we got the invitation, we thought that it was an invitation to elucidate on the matters we had. We have complained specifically about some officers of INEC, only to arrive there and to find Anyanwu and friends, a committee of Anyanwu and friends coming, and the National Chairman of INEC pretending that there were factions in the PDP. The issue of factionalization is different from the issue of waiting for the court to speak to the propriety, the legality of a convention. Those are two clear issues, and we hope to make that abundantly clear.
All right. Well, interesting point, because up until now, the evidence before a number of people would suggest that there are factions. And I was going to talk about the fact that both parties from different sides of the divide were present at the meeting with INEC. But you're saying, Mr. Ini, that you were not aware that the Samuel Anyanwu faction would be there. But let me ask you, yesterday, Ama Abraham made some claims as to why there's still these divisions within the PDP. He spoke about, in terms of the legitimacy of the convention, that in some of the states, congresses were not held. Therefore, they didn't have, delegates approved by those states attend the convention. And how could you hold the convention when all parties or voices were not represented there? He also mentioned that there have been opportunities for reconciliations and that a committee came up with 10 recommendations and the same committee violated the terms of the conditions. What would you have to say about that? And then for Mr. Sani, very specifically, is that based on this INEC position, based on the existing court cases, based on the factions in the group, what is the future of the PDP? Is there any hope that the PDP will be able to bounce back in readiness for the 2027 elections? I'll start with you, Mr. Sani, and then I'll go to you, Mr. Ememobong.
NEPA, don't take light.
Mr. Sani, can you hear? Okay, whilst we wait for Mr. Sani, let me start with Mr. Ememobong. Please go ahead.
Okay, so it's good you spoke about perception. There's a difference between perception and reality, and that is where the concept of the rational man comes in. So what does the rational man, and I'm sure that Dr. Bati is very familiar with that, what does the rational man sitting on the fence who has absolutely no interest in the matter, what does he understand from the flow of events? Now, so you see that the party constitution says that the chairman, the national chairman of a party, is the chief executive and makes every other officer in the execution of their function subservient or in consultation with the national chairman. Meaning that even as I sit here, I sit in consultation with the national chairman. That is the position of the constitution of our party. So the question is, the meeting, assuming but not considering that Anyanwu had the capacity to convene a meeting of 3 people, who gave the authority to convene, who presided over the meeting that Anyanwu called. Now, but remember that Damagun validly issued notices, and the reason why the Deputy National Secretary of our party is a member of the National Working Committee is to act in the absence or where the secretary refuses to act. So when the secretary was asked to convene a meeting and he neglected or refused to call, the Deputy National Secretary, Koshode, convened a valid meeting of the NWC, and the quorum for that meeting was 2/3, and they made the quorum, discussed, and validly suspended 3 people from there. Now, so when you get back to this origin, how do you now rationalize calling 3 people who claim to be a faction? And so when you leave them, valid notice of convention was given to INEC. In fact, INEC has been mute in many of the court cases where they have filed processes. Now, the congresses being spoken about, we issued notices in 12 states. Most of those congresses, state congresses, were undertaken. INEC monitored those congresses, but they have refused to speak to the fact that they were there. For example, in the issue of Ekiti and Osun, INEC monitored those congresses. And clearly, today, as we speak, the certificate of return and the INEC forms we gave to the candidate, Oloyede, the candidate we gave in Ekiti, came from INEC. Because the truth is there is no faction. The entire organs of the party, including the administrative structure of the party, is still with Turaki SAN. And therefore, what are they going to do with the candidates whose nominations they monitored? They must recognize them. So there is no faction, but we cannot deny that there are people who have dissent. Democracy is hinged on majority rule, but minority protection. So we are saying that the majority of the people who truly desire the survival of PDP are with the Turaki-led administration. The administrative staff, the structure, the board of trustees, the state chairman, all the organs are under. So you can't call a faction. You can call that a faction. Okay. But right, is there disagreement as to the emergence and operation of the Turaki-led administration? The answer is yes, and it's before the Court of Appeal.
All right. Mr. Sani, are you back? Okay. All right. When we get Mr. Sani back, perhaps we can talk about the future of the PDP.
Okay. Ini, please, I want you to confirm to me, did INEC observe the PDP convention in Ibadan?
The answer to that question lies with INEC, because the Electoral Act, says they may attend with or without invitation. Number one. Number two, they also have the opportunity upon appearing to identify themselves. So whether they attended or not is a business of INEC. And you know that the Supreme Court, in a plethora of cases, has said that the duty of the party is to give notice, adequate notice, sufficient notice to INEC. It is the duty of INEC to attend. So that question will go to INEC to say, did they attend or did they not?
With due respect, you and I, you know you're my brother, my friend. You and I know you are speaking Turenchi. You are speaking English. You know they did not observe. You and I know that INEC did not observe the Ibadan Convention. Because if they observe the Ibadan Convention, they also generate a report about what they saw. None of that report exists anywhere. You and I know, except for if you want to speak Turenchi, that INEC did not observe Ibadan Convention. So, my second question is, you know you're my very good friend and my brother, so that's number one is out of the way. Fact on ground, INEC did not observe the Ibadan Convention. Secondly, also, the fact that the same court of Justice Akitola Ladiran removed INEC because of jurisdiction in that case, has also spoiled one leg of the case. Because INEC, that they ran to as a regulatory body to enforce that they put on blast or notice that this convention must not hold as a regulatory body, was removed from that. So INEC is no longer part of this skirmish, and that's the only leg you are standing on. So your own case with the Ibadan court, it gets K-leg, except you want to speak Turenchi. Go ahead, my brother. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Okay, so clearly. So Rufi, now, so this is it. Parties to a matter are bound by the judgments of the court. Now, so INEC withdrawing from being a party and being struck out by the court does not affect the matter in court, because PDP has been ordered by that court order to continue with the convention. It is the business of INEC to choose whether or not to monitor. But Rufi, also remember that there are many cases where INEC even went on to monitor a different convention or congress or primaries that the Supreme Court said the party had legitimately given them notice, and their refusal to monitor does not invalidate the acts that emanated from that. So when it has to do with INEC saying they are waiting for the Court of Appeal, that's fine. But when they posture to the extent that there are factions, that is absolutely wrong. And when you look at the fact that in most of these cases, for example, the issues of congresses, the issue of the convention, INEC in their letter, even in the letter they wrote, which is why people are citing bias, and we are simply re-echoing the bias that people have cited, have refused to admit the fact that valid notices were given to them to monitor that.
So notices were given, but they didn't monitor.
No, because it's against the party, and they are competent parties before that court. And when the judgment comes, the case has been adjourned to sometime in January. When the judgment comes, the party would obey that. And so the order of the court was PDP.
Okay,
go on with your convention, and we went on with the convention. And when you go into the validity or otherwise of that is before the Court of Appeal. So what our position is simple, that when you go back to facts and even the law, the justiciability of the matter before the court, you are going to know that is what the Court of Appeal will speak to. But in fact, to the entire organs of the party, including the administrative
we need to hear from Umar Sani if the audio connection with him has been re-established. And it's simply about the way forward for the PDP. Because these cases in court being referred to, they could be there till the end of 2026, even 2027. Where does that leave the PDP ahead of the 2027 elections? Umar Sani? Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Dr. Abati, yeah, it is possible that the Court of Appeal may not hear it on time. But we are very confident that the Court of Appeal will not, will rehear it within the first quarter and determine the suitability of the matter before them. And that is what is most important, for the Court of Appeal to hear it and for us to move forward. And we are going to move forward because we are very confident in the issues that have been established. These were landmines that were placed before us to stop us from holding conventions. If you have been following the discussions that happened at the judges' conference, Her Lordship, Justice Helen,
Ogunwumeju?
Is it Maje Kodumi?
Ogunwumeju
raised a concern. Ogunwumeju, correct. She raised a very valid concern that the Federal High Courts are always drawing them back, and they are also abusing court process by always entertaining matters that are not justiciable, matters that they have already decided upon. And she frowned at it at the judges' conference. Now, these are some of the postulations, and it is now becoming clear. They are giving judgments repeatedly to show that they are very concerned. But the PDP is very much aware that the Court of Appeal is trying to constitute a panel, and the panel will be constituted very soon, and the matters will be heard and determined. And once it is determined, we are way ahead.
Okay.
These are matters that are not justiciable.
Okay, Umar Sani, I like your optimism. The Rivers matter took over 9 months.
Yeah.
Let's hope this one will not take 18 months. But thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us on The Morning Show.